You mentioned Lou Piniella. How would, obviously your brother's
He
manager-
would. I know what you're going to say. He would.
How would he start? Okay, if for the current players of this generation,
Whoa.
From the EQC studio, welcome to the Top Step with Rowland-Smith.
How we going, mates? Welcome back to another episode of the Top Step. My name is Rowland-Smith. We are inside the EQC studio. Special thanks to Emerald Queen Casino for being the major sponsor. We were just down there, and by the way, we're going to be back there in September, so make sure you come and join us. We'll let you know the dates when we are filming another episode as we wrap up this season. A lot has been happening with the Seattle Mariners. Scott Servais, we're going to dive into Scott Servais' time here with the Mariners and also Dan Wilson. We've also got Brett Boone joining me right after the break. Before we do, I want to let you know what is happening at Emerald Queen Casino this week. We're getting you set for fall with our jacket giveaway. Mondays and Tuesdays earn 2,000 points to receive an EQC fleece or waterproof jacket. Get in the zone with football at EQC and catch every play, every game, every Sunday. Plus, each day in September, play with your card and earn 2 times power points on slots and table games. You got to be here for it. Emerald Queen Casino, the entertainment capital of the Northwest. And by the way, while I'm plugging everything, make sure you go to YouTube, go subscribe, go like the videos. You can watch all the extended interviews, uncut, just like this one with Brett Boone coming up after the break. So we got the news last week. It broke. Scott Servais had been let go as the Mariners manager, 9 years as the Seattle Mariners manager. And I said this on MLB Tonight. I said this publicly. I'm still feeling this way. I was a little surprised by the news. I'm not saying it was the right move or the wrong move, but this time in the year, it was very interesting. Late August, there has never been a manager who's been this close in a hunt for the division, the AL West, within 5 games. Late August, literally weeks away from the end of the season, let go. Not to mention the fact that he was Jerry DiPoto's first hiring. So let's go back into it. So first of all, let's talk about managers real quick. The lifespan of a manager is roughly 3 to 4 years. Can you believe that? So Scott Servais, he went 9 years, and this is the hard truth. Whenever you have a manager take over, even Lou Piniella back in the day, I can't wait to talk to Brett Boone about Lou Piniella. You know it's going to be for a pretty short stint. But Scott Servais, man, he went 9 years. He went pretty well. He saw all of it too. Let's not forget, he went back. He was the first hire from Jerry DiPoto. They went from having the worst farm system, like I'm talking bottom 5, to the top 5 farm system after they went through that rebuild in 2028. So Scott Servais was here for the dawn of a new era in Mariners history. He really was. And you're talking about these young core of pitchers who have really carried this team, kept them within 5 games. Scott Servais was the dude in the dugout on the top step when all those guys came up, first of all, and through all those appearances and everything we've seen. Not to mention the fact that Julio Rodriguez, we saw him burst on the scene, that big extension last year. Robles just got an extension. He's seen a lot. And, he's been manager of the year a couple times, runner-up behind Kevin Cash, who, by the way, is the longest tenured manager as we speak. I think he's pushing on a decade with the Tampa Bay Rays. So, like I said, man, he's seen a lot. The big hot things that stand out for me for Scott Servais in his time here, 2021, the team didn't have really any expectations on them whatsoever. They got within a game. It came down to the last game of the season to get to the playoffs, and they won all those one-run games. You want to talk about, is it the managers, the players? What is it that gets a team over the hump? I got to say, when you're managing in that many close games, one-run games, man, that should be a feather in your cap. Then 2022, Scott Servais was there to break that 21-year playoff drought. So, man, he has seen it all. He had quite the tenure. I got to say, it was a very successful time here as the Seattle Mariners manager, but sad to see him go. But then in steps our good friend, Mariners legend, Dan Wilson, which brings us to this week's top trends. All right, so this week's top trends, we're talking about Dan Wilson, the Mariners' new manager. Let's look at some of these numbers. This is brought to you by ilovebaseball.org. Go to ilovebaseball.org. You can pay $38 a month, and you can change a young ball player's life down in the Dominican Republic. So let's take a look. First of all, 12 of his 14 years played as a Seattle Mariner. He is top 10 in Mariners history when you're talking games played, hits, RBIs, total bases, doubles, at-bats, runs scored. And not to mention, he got done playing, and then he was basically a special assistant since he's been done all the way up. So the thing with Dan Wilson, first of all, I've had a chance to work with him, be around him up in the broadcast booth. We know he does color for when Mike Blowers needs to take a breather. So I've had a chance to be around him, and he's just an absolute breath of fresh air to be around, man. He's always in a good mood. You can communicate with the best of them. But this is why I do like this Dan Wilson taking over. For these three reasons, this is what I'm going to give you. Number one, he adds a little bit of that old school element. Now, you know me, man. I love some of the new stuff and everything when it comes to the role the managers play. We know it's a collaboration, hence the fact that only 4 managers have been fired mid-season since I want to say around 2017, because it is that, that Dipoto and the manager collaboration. But he brings that old school element to him, that Lou Piniella type element. And I'm not saying he's going to be like Lou Piniella, but let's not forget, Dan Wilson was here in the mid-90s. So he's had that kind of era, that 90s era. Then all of a sudden, the early 2000s, by the way, he was on that 95 team and that 2001 team. So he went from everything from Lou Piniella to Bob Melvin. So he's seen it all, right? And I've got to say, I'm not saying he's going to be Lou Piniella, but some of that successful managerial, how to deal with players, and it wasn't all just screaming and flipping over spread tables. When you talk, and I'll ask Brett Boone this when he comes on after the break, but when you talk to players about Lou Piniella, he had a way of communicating with his players in a certain way that everyone respected. Mike Cameron talked about that when he was on this show. So I love that old school element, adding that to some of the resources he has when it comes to some of the analytics. I know the Mariners love to dive in. 30 teams love to dive into that. The other thing is he knows these guys already, right? If you have a new manager coming in and he's trying to get to know this system, trying to get to know these players, the way these guys tick, how they vibe in a clubhouse. Well, Dan Wilson's been down there. He's been on the field enough. By the way, when you get rid of Scott Servais, your on-field manager, you still have this young core of pitchers. I'm talking Logan Gilbert, Brian Wu, George Kirby, Bryce Miller. They're all still 3 to 5 years away from any kind of talk of free agent. Cal Raleigh, by the way, who's, a catcher, dealt with Dan Wilson a ton, even his time in the minor leagues. So he knows these players. That's really, really important when you have this big shift, especially on-field manager. It's a big move. I've had 2 managers during my career. No, sorry, take that back. 3 managers. I had 1 manager retire one of the first days of my time in the big leagues. The next one got fired early on, John McLaren. It was Mike Hargrave, by the way. He quit. John McLaren got fired. And then Don Wakamatsu at the end of the year. But again, we're losing 100 games. A little bit different in this situation. Now, the last thing I'll say real quick before we get to Brett Boone, the communication. I got to tell you, man, I've had Kirk Gibson as a manager who's hardcore. But I could go into his office and feel really comfortable. I wasn't going to get a bunch of BS back. I was just going to get a straight shot answer. That's what Dan Wilson, when you talk to him, what you see is what you get. I'm talking about inside the clubhouse. He's not going to give you some BS or say the right things because he has that rapport with players. He had that rapport even with me. I wasn't even a player. I got a chance to hang out with him enough. I've told you that. And I'm telling you right now, that's going to be a big factor inside this clubhouse. You've got to be able to communicate. Man, there would be times I'd go in. I wouldn't even want to go in the office because I just didn't want to go in, hear the same BS, give me whatever I want to hear, push me out the door, because when I start to struggle, they don't have to have any accountability. I don't see Dan Wilson as having that. He's going to have that really good communication, and he knows these guys. Another guy who he knows very well is who's joining me after the break. Can't wait to have Brett Boone join me, so don't go anywhere. Keep it right here on the Top Step.
I go where the fun is. Somewhere that shows me the good times and unforgettable moments I can share. Where you can score big, dine to your delight, and dance away the night. And me and my friends, we're here for it. Emerald Queen Casino, the entertainment capital of the Northwest.
All right, welcome back to the Top Step inside the EQC studio. This segment is brought to you by San Juan Seltzer, and I have a very special guest, Mariners legend. I've been waiting a long time to talk to this man, Brett Boone. Brett, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I've been waiting to come on your show. You asked me a year ago. I'm finally on.
This is fun, man. I got a chance to see you throughout the first pitch a couple of weeks ago at T-Mobile Park. How much do you come back to T-Mobile?
I'm probably coming up there once a year. Depends. Last year with the All-Star game being there, I came up a couple times. But pretty much when I have time and they ask, I get invited. So we had some meet and greets to do this last time, and I got when I was there, I threw out a first pitch and watched a couple games in that Phillies series. Nice. Where the M's took 2 out of 3. So it's always nice coming back. I love that city. I know you as well played there in Seattle after I left, but it's a special place, and I'd love to see the Mariners get back to winning ways and get into that postseason, because it really is I just want to explain to people what it was like in the early 2000s for about a 2 or 3 year run. I've never seen anything like it, and I got to play in a lot of big venues and a lot of big stages, but Seattle, Safeco, now T-Mobile, I'm telling you, you win, that city will turn out, and it's a lot of fun. It was electric early in the early 2000s, my time there. They
had Sunday Night Baseball there for the first time since 2004. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. It's been 20 years since they've had, Sunday Night Baseball. Wanted to trek out to the West Coast, to cover the team, because they were the years, man, 01 through to 02, 03, 04. That were the years where that bar was raised so high.
Yeah, it's amazing, because I was watching Sunday Night Baseball and I saw it hadn't been there in 20 years, and I'm going, come on, let's go, give Seattle a little love. When I look at this current team, Ryan, and I see the talent level, especially in that starting rotation, which I'm sure I've beaten that to death because they are so good, and I think you've got 5 interchangeable number ones with this current roster. I love the moves they made. Everybody's going to be critical, and the Twitter world, as we know, is not kind of the real world. Everybody for their team, they want that big blockbuster. They want that Vladimir Guerrero. They want a Shohei Ohtani. Well, if you look at this year at the trade deadline, there wasn't the big stars weren't available, but I think what the Mariners went out and did with the Arozarena, with the Justin Turner addition, with Garcia, which was a sneaky move that, everybody was talking about Arozarena and Justin Turner, but with Matt Brash being out this entire season, there was a big hole in that bullpen, and I think Garcia fills that role. I think the clubhouse, the dynamic changed a little bit with Arozarena coming in with that big personality. Kind of almost can challenge, but challenge in a positive way, Julio, because of that big personality. And then you've got a Justin Turner, who's kind of the old man in the room. He's 39 years old, but just well respected throughout the baseball community with the accolades he's racked up, his resume. He's kind of a calming voice and almost a father figure to guys in that role, almost like an Edgar Martinez in my day, who'd sit at the end of the clubhouse, and anybody had a question, go down and talk to Edgar. So I really like what they've done. It's a real vulnerable division this year, as you're watching on a daily basis. You have to fend off the Houston Astros, because I think there's not going to be a wild card come out of this division this year. I think you're going to have to win that division.
And you mentioned the trade deadline 2001, because I've heard, I've had some coaches who are on that team. But there was a little bit of a push, right, at the trade deadline to say, hey, look, we need at least another starting pitcher or something. Right. And the ownership was basically at that point, it's like, no, we're good. We're winning a bunch of games. We've got that Japanese market with Ichiro Suzuki. He's all of a sudden just turned into this superstar because he wasn't, you didn't quite know what you're going to get in spring training. And they're like, no, we're good. Was there any of that were you like a little surprised that 2001 there wasn't like any big moves happening or anything trade deadline wise?
I wasn't, and that's one of the few teams I've ever been on where I wasn't surprised just because of the ridiculous level of success we had.
Yeah.
And it was almost like if it isn't fixed, if it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Gotcha.
And that was the one time in my career where I really didn't have a problem. Now, years later and conversations later, I've had a lot of conversations with our skipper for that year, Lou Piniella. He was fighting at the deadline to get another pitcher, to your point. And hindsight, looking back on it, without the blinders of that of winning 116, if I just put my business hat on, it would have probably been wise to go out and get maybe a hired gun. Like at those times, it was a David Cohn did that quite a bit, was moving, right. Boomer Wells, that type. But to go out and get a bona fide number one type guy to just help bolster that starting rotation. But we didn't do it, and at the time, like I said, I can speak for myself and teammates at the time, really thought, we're so good, we've done this so well this year, why mess with this magical season?
You mentioned Lou Piniella. How would, and obviously your brother's
he would. I know what you're going to say. He would.
How would he start? Okay, if for the current players of this generation, how would they go with Lou Piniella as them? If 2025 rolled around, and let's subtract 15, 20 years off his life, and they're like, okay, Lou Piniella is the manager in 2025 on a team that like similar to the like a let's call it like a mid-range team or a team that's competitive, but not the Dodgers or the Yankees. I'm talking about a team that's like the Mariners, right? How would players respond to Lou Piniella as their manager? This generation of players.
This generation, and I think you hit it on the head. I don't know that they would they would enjoy their time like I did with Lou. It was a different time. That's not saying my time was better. This time is lesser. It's just different. The culture's different. The kids are brought up differently today. The rules are different. We're very welcoming and is everything okay? As a rookie, is everything okay? We want to make you as comfortable as possible from the get-go. My generation, probably your generation, it wasn't like that. I got to the big leagues, and man, I remember some tough love from some guys that I truly know really cared about me and wanted me to succeed. Man, did they make it hard. It was speak when spoken to, ride bus to, and we'll let you know when we accept you into our club. Now, looking back on it, when you did finally make it and establish yourself, there was a sense of real accomplishment. Like, wow, what I just went through, I finally did it. And it's worth that. It was worth the heartache and the tough times you go through. And I don't know if the kids see that today. I'm not cheapening the big league experience. It's just as tough to be a big leaguer today as it is in my day and your generation, my father's generation, my grandfather's generation, for that matter. The process is different. The process is different. You look at a guy like Bruce Bochy, and I got a chance to play for Bruce Bochy as well in San Diego. Wonderful man. Awesome baseball guy. He's got that it factor. There's only one Bruce Bochy, just like there's only one Lou Piniella. The difference is I think Boch could come back with that old school mentality with a sprinkle in of the current system, and Boch really can relate to the kids of today,
Yeah.
He's got a way about him. He's the big teddy bear. He's one of those guys. No one's ever said a negative word about Bruce Bochy because he's so beloved across the Major League Baseball lines. Lou, different. My favorite of all time, one of my favorite men, not only baseball men that I've met in my life, one of my favorite men that I've met in my life. He had a huge influence on me. We had rocky relationship at the beginning, and in the end, to this day, one of my most cherished relationships that I've had in the game. That being said, Lou Piniella needed a type of player that he could manage. Lou Piniella, I always say, if you had a room full of alpha males that were tough and were willing to fight and want to fight. I mean, Lou and myself almost got into it physically when I was a kid on many occasions.
What years are we talking? We talking
93.
93. Okay.
93. Lou came over from the Cincinnati Reds, and I was just cutting my teeth, and I was trying to just establish myself. Man, was he hard on me. And we'd fight and go back and forth.
He was hard? Do you think he was hard on you because he knew, the
I think
generations?
So.
Okay.
I think so.
So he's probably looking at you going, oh, yeah, this kid's been in a big league clubhouse
right.
before. He thinks, okay. Yeah, right.
Right. And he was really hard on me. Mm-hmm. And, I got traded after that season. By the end of 93, we had made amends, and we were buddies. But it was just the early stage. He would call me up. He would send me down. He would call me up. We'd argue. We'd yell. We'd have it out in his locker. And to this day, we still laugh about those things. But it taught me a lot. And I saw what he was trying to get out of me. He knew that I could handle it and that I would it was a challenge, almost like to grow up a little bit quicker in the big league life. That being said, I saw Lou. He doesn't. How do I put it? He's not a guy that adjusts. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Lou's Lou. It's what you get. And if you've got the right guys on a team, I couldn't imagine there being a better manager. If you've got a room full of Norm Charltons, Jay Buners, Brett Boones, Ken Griffey's, Edgars, Lou's the greatest in the world. But if you get a hold of a team that has some different personalities that don't match up with your personality, Lou could be tough, and he could be tough to deal with. So with Bruce Bochy having the ability to kind of adapt, right. I don't know if Lou really has that in his DNA to adapt to today. It's almost like Lou and my grandfather would have got along great. Gotcha. My grandpa, when I was playing, these guys today, Brett, we were way better than you, Ted Williams, Bob Feller. I don't know who this Randy Johnson guy is. Gramps, Randy Johnson's pretty good. Not like the guys in my – that's Lou's generation. Lou gets along with him, but nevertheless, great manager, great guy.
Hey, listen, I could keep you here all day telling stories, but hopefully you can join me again at some point, especially towards the end of the season. But, Brett, this has been awesome, man. Thank you so much.
You got it. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it.
Here's what's happening at Emerald Queen Casino this week. We're getting you set for fall with our jacket giveaway. Mondays and Tuesdays earn 2,000 points to receive an EQC fleece or waterproof jacket. Get in the zone with football at EQC and catch every play, every game, every Sunday. Plus, each day in September, play with your card and earn 2 times power points on slots and table games. You gotta be here for it. Emerald Queen Casino, the entertainment capital of the Northwest.
From the EQC studio, welcome to the Top Step with Ryan Rowland-Smith.
All right, special thanks to Brett Boone and special thanks to San Juan Seltzer, the official drink of the Top Step. Man, I could have talked to Mariners legend Brett Boone all day. Hey, matter of fact, I did. If you go to YouTube, go to @thetopstep.tv, you can watch the entire interview or listen to the interview. Wherever you get your podcasts, it's on audio as well. Go listen to it. We talk for ages. We just couldn't fit it all in on the show. So make sure you go to YouTube. Go subscribe. Go give us a review. Good review, bad review. I don't care. Go give us a review. That'd be nice. I appreciate that. Now, let's get to the How to Speak Australian segment brought to you by the Kangaroo and Kiwi. But you got to go to the Kangaroo and Kiwi. It's an Aussie pub. It's awesome. That's where I go when I want to have a beer with my mates. So this week, the Aussie word is Buckley's chance. Or 2 words, phrase, whatever, Buckley's chance. I'll give you a sentence. Mate, you've got Buckley's chance of that happening. Is that a good chance or is that a bad chance? Do the Mariners have a Buckley's chance of making it to the AL West? Winning the AL West? We shall see. Let me know. Go to Twitter or Instagram @thetopsteptv. Hashtag TTS, mate. Give me your answer and we'll see if you can win this week's edition of How to Speak Australian brought to you by the Kangaroo and Kiwi. Mate, that's all I've got this week. I got Buckley's chance of being back here until next Friday. I just gave you a hint. We'll see you right here in the EQC studios on the Top Step.